This is Tom Rust for TRSB Sports Podcast. Today, delighted to be joined by Scottish swimmer Kieran Brechenser. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, of course.
Mate, before we get into your swimming and your recent success, we had a good conversation on the phone last week. I asked you about the Fury White fight, if you were going to be watching it. Again, just before we start talking about your swimming, how did you think the fight went? What did you make of it?
Well, I love Tyson Fury, and it was pretty obvious that he was going to win 6th round. So,
what was your prediction before the fight?
I thought Fury would win, to be honest. Yeah.
Did you think White would bring more to the table? Like watching it after the first couple of rounds, it didn't seem like he could really get a foothold in the fight. He tried with some big shots, but Fury looked like he could see them coming a mile away.
Yeah, well, Fury's obviously the better fighter, so I didn't really think he would put up much of a fight, but you never know with heavyweight boxing. So,
what do you make of the knockout?
I mean, obviously with the whole push incident, I mean, it's a bit controversial, but I mean, Fury deserved it. So,
yeah, I heard White speak about that, and you can see where he almost helped him on his way. But I think at the same time, he could have maybe hit him again.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll fight again?
Who?
Fury.
I'd like him to. I don't know though.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about him being the best fighter of this generation, and whether he needs to fight Usyk to really confirm that. I suppose, if we have a conversation in 20 years' time and look back if he doesn't fight him. But do you feel like he needs to beat Usyk to be considered the number one heavyweight of this era?
I mean, I'm not sure, to be honest. They're both great, but I don't know.
Well, time will tell, mate. But talking about big events, going back to your swimming, your recent success, swimming at the Scottish National Age Group Championships. Mate, thank you for sending over the link. Some great swimmers, some great times. It looked like a great event all round. When you look back now, I know it was only a little while ago, but how do you reflect on the event?
Well, I mean, there was ups and downs because basically when I was traveling down, I was actually a bit under the weather. So I was a bit worried about how the week was going to go, and I started off a bit slow with the event started with 100 backstroke, which was one of my top events, but it didn't go to plan. I actually slipped on you've got these backstroke wedges in swimming. They're pretty new into the sport, and when I jumped into the water to get set onto the wedge, it was actually a lot higher than the setting I'd put it on. So when I actually went to dive, basically my feet didn't get a grip on the wall. I slipped, and I basically had to sprint from the start just to catch back up. And then also being a bit under the weather kind of added to that and made it harder for me to fight back in the second half. So I missed out on a final there, even though I should have been thereabouts of medal contention. So that was a big disappointment. But as the week went on, I had a couple of breaststroke events throughout the week. I did the 50 and 100, and I got personal bests in both of them. My confidence just grew throughout the week. And then I knew on the last day, on the Sunday, that the 50 back was my chance to make a mark and put in a good performance. And I actually surprised myself with the heat swim. I went a lot faster than I expected, because in British Champs the week before, I'd went 28.5, which was actually a little bit over my PB. And then the week later at Snags, which is Scottish National Age Group Championships, I literally went 0.7 of a second faster, which is a massive drop off in perspective of a sprint event in swimming. So it was unexpected, but I knew that I had something more to give in that event, and I'd been working a lot on my start. So to do that time, it was just really good. And then I just knew I had to replicate that in the final, and I did. I went 0.07 seconds faster from the heat to the final. So it was less than 10th of a second. So it was pretty much near identical swim, but it's what I needed to do. So it was good.
And how much was the first race in your mind going into other backstroke events? Because of course, when you start a backstroke event, you know, I know a lot of it is underwater, and swimmers take full advantage of that. So how much did that sort of play in your mind going into the 50 back?
Well, I've actually got, I'd say not weak, but maybe like below average at underwaters compared to a lot of the backstrokers like in my age group and in Britain. But yeah, I knew I had to, so I count my underwaters off my 50 back. I always do 10. So like when I'm doing my underwaters, like obviously in a race, I'm not really thinking about like the technique behind it. It's kind of just like you're in autopilot mode during a race, but I'm always just thinking about trying to like produce as much force as possible, but with like as little as little drag. So you don't want to be like really like big and wide and taking up a lot of surface area, because yes, you'll produce more force, but then you're also producing more resistance. So then you're just pushing against yourself.
Yeah, there's so much involved. You know, when you watch the race, itself going, looking at the 50 backstroke, less than 30 seconds you're in the water, but there is so much going on. You've got the start, the underwater work. I suppose when you break the surface, a strong finish. Just break the race down for us and how you actually prepare for that one.
Okay, so at the start of the week, I had my backstroke ledge on 2+2, so it's like just above the surface of the water. And then obviously when I slipped, it wasn't actually on that setting, it was actually a bit higher. I probably should have said something to the official behind the block, but I never. But anyway, I decided to like try a few on 0, so that's like just on the surface of the water, and it was feeling better. Although I had been practicing on 2, I decided to drop it down a bit. So then that allowed me to like push back more rather than going so far up and down. So I wasn't going as deep in my dives. So when I was doing, so for example, in the heat swim, I put the setting to 0. And then when I dove in, 10 underwater kicks. And I felt like I was actually a bit too deep, if I remember correctly, when I broke the surface. So obviously, if you break the surface too late, you're at the surface and you've allowed yourself to slow down before you start. But if you're too deep and you start your stroke, you're going to be pushing against a lot of water, which will basically put on the brakes. So the breakout needs to be perfect, so you're carrying your momentum from your start into your actual swimming. So you've obviously got to really think about when you're trying to break the surface of the water. But obviously, it'll be quite autopilot when you're racing. You won't really think about it. And I think because of that slight change in that position of the wedge, that's why I was maybe a bit too deep on that heat swim, which is, I corrected that in the final, so that was good. But yeah, once you've broken that surface of the water, you're just, because it's a 50, you've not really got time to think about like placing your arms and properly catching the water. So it's basically just you're relying on spinning your arms, getting that rate as high as possible, making sure that you're pulling the water as hard as you can, and you're just basically like, you've practiced and training, so it's just autopilot. You're just flinging your arms basically. I know it's like obviously not as simple as that because you're thinking about it a lot in training, but really when you're racing, it's just grit and aggression and just trying to pull your arms through the water as fast as you can. And then when you're coming towards the finish, it's like, it is just a 50, but you've got to really remind yourself to keep that rate high, because it's easy to just like slow your arms a little bit into the finish. You've got to keep it high. And then when you see the flags, well, for me personally, in a 50, it's 4 arm strokes from the flags to the wall. So you've got to really make sure that you time that finish so that you're on a full stroke. Unlike the heat swim where I actually finish with like my hand like just above my head. Jeez. But in comparison to the final where I finish with a fully outstretched arm, which is obviously going to make a difference.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because you often see butterfly swimmers. They might come in on a full stroke and they might be, I don't know, a little bit off from the wall, but you almost can't take another stroke. So you've got to kick, but of course you lose so much time, and especially on a 50-meter backstroke or whatever the stroke may be. How important is that to get that right? Because on a 50-meter race, that could probably be the difference between coming second or first or third. You know, there's not a lot in it, of course.
Yeah, well, in my final, I feel like I nailed the finish pretty well, and I didn't really recall anything going wrong besides I started veering towards the lane rope quite a lot, which is a problem I've had a lot. But yeah, the finish is like vital. Like if you watch the race back, I actually came third. I was 0.04 seconds behind second place, and it actually, like, he was like half a body length ahead at the start, but I was just coming back at him, and then like I think I had a better finish than him, which reduced the gap a lot because it looked like he was quite ahead of me. So yeah, little things like that. If I didn't time that finish, that can be 0.2 of a second, and that's me out of the medal positions. You know what I mean? So just an extra glide, just that extra moment, it can actually be, yeah, it's vital. So.
And after the disappointment with the 100 backstroke, how pleased were you to come this third, wasn't it? You finished in the 50 backstroke, 27.82, I believe your time was. So coming third at the national championships, that's an incredible achievement.
Thank you. Yeah, it felt really good. I mean, it's been so hard because, like, obviously with all the restrictions and all the rest of it, I don't really want to talk about that too much because that's just a bit of a downer. But the last national championships I had a chance to compete in was 2019. So I've missed out on like a big proportion of like my age group swimming. I've not really had a chance to like compete at that stage and show to everyone like the progression I've made, because in 2019 I came sixth in the 50 back. I was also, that also wasn't really one of my main focuses. I was geared a lot more towards butterfly and breaststroke when I was younger. And I'd still like to be. I really do like my IM, but like I've had a couple of shoulder injuries and stuff, which has kind of stopped me from doing as much butterfly. But yeah, like it was so relieving to finally get like that medal, just because, not necessarily because like it's not the be all and end all to have a medal. Like it's about constantly having that self progression, but it just felt good to like finally have that chance to be at a national championships and have that feeling of like getting a medal. And it also didn't look like it was going to happen at all. Like I was just kind of in the heats of the 50 back. I was like, come on, I have to make a final at this point, because I've been making finals since I was really young, and I was like, I didn't want to have that feeling that I'd been going backwards, because I knew I hadn't been going backwards, but it was just, it hadn't been going well for me. So to get to that stage and actually end up getting a medal, it caught me by surprise, and I feel like I deserved it as well. So.
And how pleased were you with the time?
Oh, that's even better than the medal, because like I had a long-term goal that I set myself before British champs to go under 28 seconds by the end of the long course season. So that would have been like the summer meets, which are in July. So I set myself a goal of getting under 28 seconds by July. So to do it in April was just like, I didn't expect it. So I was so happy with it.
And I think for people watching this, there'll be people watching this that follow swimming and know how quick that is. But for people that don't, all I would say is when you're next at a swimming pool, do a couple of lengths on whatever stroke you fancy, time yourself, and then you'll fully understand how quick 27.82 is for 50 backstroke, because all of you know were amazing. All the places that race, all some, all really good swimmers. And as you touched upon as well, over the last couple of years, of course, the world has sort of stood still. And unlike a lot of sports, swimming is, I think it's really different. You can't just go and swim. You need a structure, you need a club. So for you to go to championships and finish third, it must give you a lot of motivation just to carry on as well and train hard.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, because like since the start of 2020, when I could no longer train, if you think about it, it seems like it's been like 2 and a bit years, but really I've only trained for like about a year of that whole time, like in the water. So it seems like 2 years have passed, but it's only really been 1 year of progression. Obviously, during lockdown, I was doing like I was doing as much as I can on land. I was going for runs. I was doing like circuits, and I was actually doing quite a lot of weightlifting. But yeah, it's obviously just not the same because swimming's so much about feel for the water and technique that you just can't train that if you're not in the water. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And unless you're quite privileged and you're fortunate enough to have a swimming pool at home. And again, if you're part of a football team, you can go and have a kickabout. If you're an athletics person, you can go for a run. But there's nothing that really can replace swimming. But how do you manage the whole championships? Because again, like other sports, like a game of football, you're going to go and play for 90 minutes. But looking at the schedule over that championships, some swimmers, including yourself, they might do a warm up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Their last race might be 8 o'clock in the evening. How do you manage all the events?
Yeah, it's difficult because obviously in the morning of each day, you've got your prelims, which is your heat swims. So every event that you do twice besides
Yeah.
the 800 and the 1500 because obviously they're distance events. But yeah, so me and my girlfriend were sharing a hotel together for down in Glasgow for the meet. So we would get the bus in the morning. We'd get up at I think it was 6:30 or 6:45. We'd have breakfast, etc. Then we'd get the bus for to be there for roughly like 7:45, because the warm up was at 8. So then we get in the warm up, do whatever we had to do, and then we would dry off, get changed into like our racing suits and whatever, and then we'd just like, depending if your first event, obviously you're out the warm up with plenty time, you get your food, your drink, and then you're up racing. But if you're like last event of the morning, you've got to sit around and wait for all the other events to go by before you're then actually racing. So you've kind of got to do like a second warm up. So you'll give yourself plenty of time. You'll go to marshalling. You'll do a lot of like land warm up. So you'll do like mobilization. You'll do like explosive jumping, whatever you want to do, really just to warm up and get yourself mentally and physically prepared. And then after like the morning swim, you obviously recover, make sure you're recovered. You go into the cool down pool, and then we'd go back to the hotel, probably get like a nap, make sure you get lunch, and then you're obviously having to like repack your swimming bag with like food, dry trunks, like new towel and everything, and then you're off for the evening finals, and you just do it all over again.
And I know as well, you said you weren't feeling 100%. So how much do you feel like that sort of played a part in how you performed?
I thought it would affect me more than it actually did, to be honest. I think definitely on the Wednesday, it affected not only like my actual performance, it affected my motivation as well, because I actually have had quite a lot of like setbacks before big meets, like the Edinburgh International, which was at the beginning of March. I hadn't trained for 3 weeks before that because of a shoulder injury. And then I went into the meet, like having to qualify for British at that event after not training. And I managed to get it done. But it's like, it's been frustrating with a lot of setbacks, illness and injury. So I was actually quite demotivated on the Wednesday, which didn't help. But I had a bit of a boost because I woke up on the Thursday morning and I felt much better. So like after that first day, I think it was okay. It didn't really affect me as much as I thought it would.
How's the shoulder doing now?
I'm still avoiding butterfly in training right now, just because I feel like I probably could do it, but that's been like one of the main aggravators. And I'd rather just be settled with what I'm doing right now and continue to be able to do what I am doing right now than try and push it and risk it, because I'm still waiting on a scan for my shoulder. I mean, it's not serious, but it's at the point where it's not getting better. You know what I mean? Like something needs to be checked and something needs to be done. And I don't want to be doing like rehab or weight stuff if I don't know if it's going to help or make it worse. So I'm kind of just managing it right now.
And what about the psychological side before going into a big meet? Because of course, you put the training in before. I know sometimes, like you just touched on, you've not always had that opportunity with your injury that you're obviously sort of nursing at the moment, and making sure you don't do things that are going to make it worse. But when you're going to a big event and you've not only got to swim the heats, you've got to swim the finals, and there's a lot of waiting around. Like you said, you might do a warm up and then you're going to have to then warm up again. How do you deal with that mentally? Do you ever get any self doubt, or are you quite mentally resilient come race day?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of negative thoughts that go through my head personally. Like I constantly like think that I could have done more. Like you'll be you'll be like in marshalling before a race and you'll think back to a session like a month ago and you'll think, "Oh, I could have tried harder. What if that's a difference?"
Yeah,
But when I'm behind the block, I forget all of that. Like it all leaves my head by the time like I'm on the block. It's just all you're thinking about is like the task at hand, really. So yeah, you get doubts. You also get motivation. You think I deserve this, and you get pumped up. But I feel like for me personally, like my heart will obviously be racing. I'll be nervous, but I'll be focused at the same time.
what about your nerves before a race? Do you get quite nervous?
I'd say I probably do, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's just the caffeine before the race, but you'll see me like my knees bouncing, my hands jittering. Um, yeah, I'll get nervous, but it's not always like it's not bad nerves. It's like excitement. It's impatience. It's just I
Yeah.
want to get going. I want to see what I can do. You know what I mean?
Of course, there's a combination of emotions. I remember when I used to compete, you'd see some people with the headphones on, sat quite still, not really doing a lot. Other people will be waving their arms around, jumping up and down, going through the stroke. So everyone, I think, prepares in a different way.
Yeah.
And looking at the event, of course, you were doing quite a few different events. How important is it for you, at 17 years old, not to solely focus on a couple? Because of course, physically, over the next few years, obviously you might get taller, you might, obviously put on size.
Yeah.
So one moment you might be a brilliant backstroker, but then, over the next couple of years, you physically might be more suited to breaststroke. So how important is it to keep your options open, and how much do your coaches encourage you to do different events?
Yeah, well, my coach actually, yeah, she's very keen on us doing like all the different events. Like we don't get, well, we do, but we don't always get the choice of like what strokes we're doing and sets and things like that. Like we'll do IM sets, we'll do freestyle sets, and then like we'll do some sessions where we're just doing technique focus on particular strokes. So it's not like you just get to choose, you know what I mean? It's all about like progression throughout all the strokes. And I also feel like it's not just important in a competitive aspect. It's also like it's important just for fun, you know, like
Mix it
I
up.
know, well, me personally, I enjoy improving on all the strokes. Um, I've gone through phases of like loving all of them and preferring all of them. That's why I'm desperate to get back to competing in IM. But yeah, it's really rewarding to work on a stroke or a technical aspect on something and reap the rewards. So if you've got four strokes, you've got four separate opportunities to do that over and over again. So yeah, it's fun.
it reminds me of when Michael Phelps used to compete, when you used to watch him swim. And again, like we're talking about, as you get older and, you get sort of higher up in any particular sport, obviously, especially in swimming, you sort of home on a particular event. But obviously Phelps, he's probably the exception when he would go to the Olympics and just swim, the fly, the IMs, the freestyle, the relays, just incredible.
Yeah, no, it's just like you expect something like that at like age group level, but to see him doing that against people at international level, it's inspiring though. It's like it makes you think, like you want to do it all. That's what I'm like anyway. I want to do it all as much as I can. And I know that realistically, you're not going to be able to do every event. Like I was a lot worse when I was younger. You'd get sent the meet information. I'd just enter every single event as a kid. I just do it all, but obviously that's not the case anymore. But
yeah. That's when your parents pick it up and like, how much is that going to be then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now that like kind of that financial responsibility is falling more and more onto me as well. It's like you've got to be smart. You've got to be smart.
And how much do you focus on times? Because, of course, when you swim, and another reason why I love swimming is because, unlike other sports, it can be somewhat subjective and a matter of opinion. But when you watch your race, 50-meter final of the backstroke, technically maybe people are better than others, but of course whoever gets the quickest time is the winner, and that's it. There's no debate to be had. However, when you go into a big event, how much do you focus on the times? Because of course you want to get a PB, but you don't want to become obsessed with that.
Yeah, that's something I struggled with a lot when I was younger. I was so like focused on times, and I still to this day I overanalyze things and I focus so much on times. Like when I was a kid, I used to just look up the rankings in Scottish swimming and I just scroll through every single event and see where I was in the rankings and be like, oh, I need to go that time to be at the top. I need to go this time to be at the top. And it would eat away at you because you just stress yourself out thinking about times all the time. But obviously they're important and you do need to focus on them. Like the times they tell you a lot. Like if you look at my 200 backstroke splits at Snags, it was 31, 31.5, 35 something, and then 36, 36. So those last three splits were pretty consistent, but obviously I want to be reducing the time in that back half quite a lot, because if you compare that to my short course, I went 2:10 for my 200 back in the short course season, but in the long course at Snags I went 2:19. So
is that because of the extra tumbles though?
Yeah, definitely. Like because like in backstroke, you come up to the surface, you swim, then you're at that wall before you know it when it's short course, and you get that push off, which just gives you that extra momentum to carry. Whereas long course, it's a completely different event because you're swimming for so much longer. It's so much easier to just like lose your momentum, and then you're just fighting the water.
And when do you sit down with your team and really sort of home in on a particular race, a particular stroke?
I would say that's probably a while away yet. I'd say if you're, I'm not sure about other people, but I'd think if I was getting close to like consideration for like say a European junior team or just a European team, Commonwealth team, and you were close for one event more than another, you'd obviously focus on that event more because like that's where you want to be. You want to be within those teams. You want to be competing at the top. So you would probably put more emphasis on that event if that was the case.
And collectively, how did your club do? Aberdeen Dolphin you swim for?
Mm-hmm.
And so collectively, when I was watching it, they were talking about the point system. How did you get on overall as a team?
Yeah, well, we came seventh, which is actually really impressive because in 2016, which was the first nationals I competed in, I was the only swimmer representing my club. So our club's come along so much since then. 6 years on, we're now 7th in the entire country. And most of those clubs above us are composite, which means they've got a whole ingrained sequence of smaller clubs that feed into the bigger club. So for example, the University of Aberdeen team, they've got a lot of smaller teams like Dice, Bridge of Dawn. They've got a lot of smaller teams that compromise into that one big team. So they've got a lot more swimmers and a lot more teams that compromise of that one team, if you say. So we're the single club. We're not assigned with any other club or anything like that. So to be at that level, I'm really proud of the team, and we deserve to be there. So,
and of course, it sounds like you've been there for a long time. What's changed then? Because of course, going from having one swimmer at the national championships to coming 7th as a team, what changes have been made? Because there's clearly been a lot of progress.
Yeah, well, we used to actually be a part of the University of Aberdeen composite club, but they were called Coast back then. And then when they formed into University of Aberdeen, we branched off into our own independent club. So the year after, we had a lot of swimmers that are the year below me. They were just coming through and making times. So we had a few more swimmers then. And I feel like a lot of the seniors are to blame for the progression of the club. We had Mark Campbell, who represented Dolphins at the Commonwealth Games. So he probably gave a lot of attention to the club. But then after that as well, I'd say at districts and national level, my friend Tom, my teammate Tom, he's at the top. He won a couple of golds at nationals. Just a lot of role models that attract a lot of swimmers, and we've become more and more recognizable, and it's just attracting a lot more younger swimmers to come in, and it's just expanding.
And as well, you find often that, I suppose, a lot of clubs, but swimming clubs, especially, you get a lot of people that give up a lot of time for no financial reward. A lot of parents, a lot of people that judge on the day as well. So there's a massive team effort, isn't there, for you lot to get in a pool and compete?
Yeah, I'd say the financial thing is quite big. I spoke to a Paralympian, Connor Morrison. He swims for the University of Aberdeen. I spoke to him when I was in Edinburgh for the Edinburgh International a couple months ago, and he was saying how unrepresented swimming is and the money that's in it. I mean, I obviously can't speak for myself because I'm not at that level yet, professional level. I'm not earning money out of it, but I feel like it's so underrepresented and underappreciated because it's such a difficult and grueling sport, and you need to put so much time and effort into it. It's hard to understand. It's almost impossible to understand unless you've actually been in it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I totally understand what you're saying. There's some sports where you can almost turn up and you can be part of it because for a game of football, for example, there's 10 other players on there, so you don't have to be the best player in the world. And there's so many different divisions as well. But with swimming, we come onto it, but I imagine you're training mornings, nights, probably 6-7 days a week, and there's a lot that goes with it. And like you just said as well, when you compete, you might start early in the morning, finish late at night, and that's a Saturday and Sunday. You've got to try and rest in between. It probably doesn't get the recognition that it probably deserves due to the amount of work that people put in. But I think that's because, I suppose, in a way, we are sport. There are so many sports out there, and a lot of them are so accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the accessibility is definitely a big thing because, I'd say I'm obviously really lucky to be in the position that I'm in, but it's an expensive sport. You've got to, like, with a football club, you probably pay a small fee to like be part of a team and play week in, week out. But with swimming, you've got to pay for each individual event you enter. You've got to pay a pretty big fee towards the club in order to obviously like have the pool space. And then there's obviously all the additional costs of like gear, um, like your trunks. Racing trunks are expensive, like £100 per pair minimum, really, if you're wanting to get a decent pair. Um, so yeah, it's expensive, and I've not even mentioned accommodation yet. Like me having to go down to Glasgow and Edinburgh, like once a month is expensive for hotels. So it's an expensive sport, and you also don't get that much financial what's the word? You don't get that much financial help either. So yeah, like other sports are a lot more accessible, so it's understandable why it's not as popular, but it's just it's annoying.
And I know, you know, you sort of did touch on the lockdown a little while ago. I just wanted to talk to you about that because, of course, you know, it was a rubbish time for a lot of people, to say the least. However, were any of the times, did any of the times sort of reflect the fact that a lot of people weren't able to train for a long period of time? And did you see a lot of people walk away from the sport at that point? Because like we we're saying, with other sports, it can be, in my opinion, easier to get into because you don't need to make so many sacrifices. Because I imagine with swimming, you've been out for a long time. It's hard to get back into.
Yeah, I feel like the group, like, so in district and national level, it's quite niche. You see a lot of the same faces. And basically, there was this meet. It was the first meet after all the lockdowns. It was a summer festival, and you went to it and you expected to see like all the faces, and you expected it just to be normal,
Yeah.
and back to the way it was. And there was quite a few people that had given it up uh, and weren't there anymore. And it's a shame because it's like it's just it's really sad because obviously swimming can obviously affect so many people's lives in a positive way. Well, not just swimming, any sport. And if swimming's your thing and you can't do it for a good year, it's just it can have like pretty bad mental effects on people, and it's just a shame.
Yeah, because of course, on one hand, you're not being able to train doing the sport you love, but it's about being around your team as well. Just the banter you have before you train, while you're training, after training, going to events. There's a lot to miss when you're all of a sudden taken away from what you enjoy doing.
Yeah, definitely. It's a whole community, um, like the whole like rewarding process. Just even just the enjoyment of the water. Like you just miss out on so much that just goes underappreciated. But it also, like out of all the bad things, it did allow me personally to be a lot more grateful. Like I'm just grateful that I'm even like able to be in the water and actually able to train in the first place, because it's just I'm lucky. So I'm gonna try and make the most of that.
And talking about training, we on this channel predominantly up until this point have spoken to professional boxers to help them with exposure. And I think like any sport, like boxers, when they get in the ring, when you step on a block, or a football team turn up to play a match, that's almost like the polished version. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes to get you to that point. So just talk us through a stereotypical week for you, training wise.
Okay, so I'll just go for this week. So Monday morning, I got up at 6:30 and I did a strength and conditioning session in my garage. So I did 3 sets of 8 split squats with the dumbbells. I did some weighted planks, 20 kg planks, and I did some explosive goblet squats with a dumbbell, and then I did some hanging leg raises. That's just legs and core. I didn't want to do too much upper body because I obviously had training Monday night, and obviously I'm trying to nurse a shoulder injury. Yeah. And then Monday night we did a tuner pace set. So it was 32 50s at tuner pace on a 60-second interval, but it was split into 2 sets of 16 50s. So I did the first set as backstroke. I was holding 31s to 32s.
Quite as rapid.
Thank you. Yeah, for each 50. So that's roughly like sub 210 pace. So if I was doing that, then I would then get like 28 seconds rest per 50, pretty much, because it's on 60 seconds. So you get 32 seconds of it you're swimming, 28 seconds of it you're resting. And you repeat that 16 times. And then...
Sorry, just to jump in, is that in a short course or is that long course?
Yeah, short course pool. Sorry, I should have.
No, that's fine.
I'd probably be going like 34s, 35s if it was long course. But yeah, so 16 50s, and then we did a 200 recovery, but then it was probably about 5-10 minutes of recovery, and then we were on to the second set of 16 50s. And I don't know if it was the morning session, the morning gym session or whatever, but I ended up getting really bad cramp in both my quads. So I was meant to be doing that as breaststroke, but I kind of had to just do it as a bit of a recovery. But yeah, it would have been another 16 50s at tuner pace on a minute. Usually that would have gone pretty well, but in this case, I was recovering for the second set. And then we just finished the session off with just some like technical stuff. And then Tuesday.
Is that a 2-hour session, hour and a half, hour?
Hour and a half, yeah. And then today, sometimes I do gym stuff on the Tuesday morning. It's either the Monday morning or the Tuesday morning. So this week it was a Monday. I'm taking today as like a recovery day. So after this, I'm going to be doing it's like a quick warm up, some stretching, some rolling, and then probably get in the bath and then ice my shoulder as well. Hot and cold therapy on my shoulder just to try and reduce inflammation. And then I'm glad I have the rest day today because tomorrow is a double. Wednesday morning, 2-hour session, 6 till 8. We usually do a 200 free set, 200 pace free set. So it's usually 20 50s on 50 seconds. So yeah, 20 50s on 50 seconds at 200 free pace. And then we'd either do a 200 IM set after that or a 400 IM set. Morning sessions are brutal. So, and then like between that or some point in that, you'll do like technique stuff and a lot of like a nice long warm up, a lot of recovery between the sets. It's intense when you're working hard, but there's also a lot of like chilled technique stuff in it as well. So it's a good mix. And then Wednesday nights is usually like E-pace, which is 25s max. You do 625s from the blocks at 50 pace. So for example, I'd be doing like max 25s backstroke, working on my starts, just my speed in general. And then you'd also do 100 pace, which is also 25s, but it's like repetitions from a push at your 100 pace. So I'm a 58.7 for 100 backstroke. So, well, in short course pool. And then, so I divide that time by 4, which gives me a time of 14.6 for my 100 pace. So I have to hold that on a 30-second interval for 20 25s. So I'd be going 14.6 and then I'd be getting 15 seconds rest. And I repeat that 20 times. So and then you do the same again on Thursday, but you do different strokes for the E-pace and the C-pace. And then Fridays, usually technical work, like a bit of a rest, technique focus. And then Saturdays last Saturday we did a 200/400 IM set. And then Sundays we do a time swim in a long course pool, as well as a tuner pace.
What's the time swim you do?
It varies. Sometimes we'll do a 50 or 100, sometimes a 200, sometimes several 50s. We'll do like a lactate set where we'll just do like 4 50s max with like 5 minutes rest between each 50, or we'll spread the time swims throughout the whole session and have recovery and technique in between, or you'll do like 2 100s max or 2 200s. It just depends. Like sometimes I'll choose backstroke or breaststroke, and maybe occasionally freestyle, and then hopefully a bit of fly when I'm back to it. But yeah, it just depends on how you're feeling the day.
And don't you manage your job around all your training as well?
Yeah, I work Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, like throughout the day. So, like for example, yesterday I was in the gym in the morning, and then I had a day of work. I'm a lifeguard, so I work at a pool, ironically.
I'll tell you what, if I ever get any trouble in a pool, mate, I wouldn't mind you being my lifeguard. Just,
Yeah,
most people would just dive in, you'd just start doing backstroke.
Yeah, so yeah, Monday I was in the gym in the morning, then a day of work, and then like a couple hours of downtime, and then I'm in the pool. And Wednesday's even worse because I'm up at 5 to then go to training for 2 hours, and then I've got a whole day of work, and then training's at 5 p.m. So I've got to go straight from work to training. So it's literally just training, work, training, and then you've got your downtime after that.
And how do you stay motivated? Because you're 17 years old. I know you've got a missus, you said earlier, but I don't know if you drive, or how big your sort of friendship group is. But I imagine you're getting to that age where a lot of your mates that don't compete and maybe don't fully understand like the sacrifice you have to make to compete at the level you do. How do you stay motivated? Because there's a lot of distractions. Obviously, you've got social media now as well. I remember reading something years ago about the British Olympic squad had a lot of issues with social media, people staying up all night on it and just were tired for training. How do you stay motivated and dedicated to the sport?
I feel like a lot of it is just habit. Like I've told myself so many years as a kid and growing up that like this is what I want to do. This is my passion. And I feel like if I break that habit, I'll be disappointed in myself. I'll feel like I'll just feel sad. I'll feel like I've not done myself justice if I veer from my training, you know what I mean? So I've got a routine and I'm going to stick to it. And I don't allow myself to veer from it because I don't want to disappoint myself. And I'm just at the stage where I'm so used to it that anything that's different in a negative way, it just makes me feel bad about myself.
You only get one opportunity as well, don't you? You know, you're only young once, and swimming's a tough sport. You've got to make a lot of sacrifices. And it sounds like from what you're saying, if you was to not train as much as you should do, you would certainly look back in a few years and think, well, actually, what if? Because I think if you put everything in and you compete and you maybe don't get the time you want to get, there's no excuses. You can't beat yourself up. But when, like you were saying earlier, maybe sometimes if you look back and think, well, actually, I missed those weight sessions, I missed those early mornings, or I didn't try as hard. You always sort of question yourself, and maybe you could have gone further.
Yeah, I mean, like regret's another big thing. Like, I've watched quite a lot of videos of people talking about regret, and I think like whenever I'm like lacking motivation or like I'm veering from my usual routine, it's just I think to myself, I don't want to be like 70 or 80 and looking back on my life like regretting on like the opportunities I could have taken. I really want to just try and remind myself as much as I can that that's what I want to do. I don't want to be regretful when I'm older.
No, of course. I think you're right, mate. You only get one opportunity, and swimming is tough. And if you don't give it all, you like you're saying yourself, it's something you will look back and regret. I've got to ask you about the early morning start. So I imagine up in Scotland it gets pretty cold at 6 o'clock in the morning. And when there's ice on the ground and you're standing poolside and you can feel the cold air coming off the water, how do you manage with those early mornings?
Oh, don't get me started. I mean,
and you've always got the coach with a nice hot cup of tea, like walking around poolside, and yeah, you're standing there, and yeah, again, you can feel the cold air coming off.
yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, I'll be standing poolside and I won't want to get in. Like, I know how committed I am and I know like how much I want to train, but in that moment, there's nothing I'd rather do than go back to bed.
Yeah.
Just force yourself into that pool and you warm up. And once you've warmed up and you've got that feel for the water, you're starting to get a bit buzzing and you're excited for training. And then you're kind of in that zone by that point. Like once you've warmed up and you've had that chance to like wake up a bit, you're ready to go. Sometimes that even takes to like halfway through the first main set. But once you're there, it's worth it and you feel so good about yourself afterwards. So that's kind of what I tell myself before. It's like you don't want to be there, you just got to force yourself though.
Is there any particular person that inspires you?
I think maybe my friend Tom definitely inspires me because like I used to be above him in terms of like swimming ability, and he said that he used to look up to me a lot, and then he's come through a lot. He's been through a lot, and now he's just like he's massive, and like so many people look up to him and see him as like this amazing swimmer, but he's so humble, and I feel like I need to take a lot from how humble he is. And yeah, also my girlfriend as well, I look up to her a lot in the sense that she's been through a lot and she's still cracking on. She's so like consistent with her training, she never misses a session, and I feel like I probably miss more sessions than her, but I feel like sometimes that's because she just refuses to miss sessions even when she's like ill or injured. But it's still inspiring in the sense that it's like no matter what, you can still turn up, and it's inspiring.
How important is it for you to train when you're not feeling it and come over and get through adversity to just crack on when you're not quite right?
Yeah, it's definitely important because some of those sessions are what make the difference. Like there is a line though, because I've learned that the hard way. There's been times where I've been like nursing an injury, like worse than what I am right now, and I'll just continue to push through it, thinking that I'm doing what you just said, like just trying to push through a hard session. But I feel like I've learned the hard way. I've gone to a session where like I'm feeling ill, and it's actually made me go backwards, made me feel more ill, and it's ended up making me go back the way. So yes, it's important, but you also need to try to learn to find that line where it's like, yes, you need to go to sessions when you're not feeling it and push yourself. But then there's also times where you do need to be responsible and smart and pick and choose when it's actually right for you to train.
And when we spoke on the phone, you spoke a lot about personal progression. Just talk to me a little bit about that and what you really mean by that.
Well, I feel like swimming's so personal. Like there's so many like different techniques, and like everyone goes through their own journey, and it's quite an individual sport. So I feel like what's more important than anything else is like achieving what you want to achieve, and hitting personal goals and be bettering yourself from what you've ever done before. So if I were to have come last at nationals with a 27.8, I wouldn't have cared. You know what I mean? Like I improved myself by that much, and I proved to myself that I can progress myself to a new level that I'd never reached before. And that's what it's about, really. It's about pushing yourself to new levels and trying to beat that new level over and over and over again.
I think with swimming as well, another a great thing about it is, like you just touched on, you can come last. However, if you train hard and you get half a second PP, depending on the distance of the race, you can come last, but you can still walk away and be proud of your achievements. And I think it's so important as well, because I think it's something that gets you back in the water on Monday morning and want to train again, just seeing that continuous progression.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, that's what so many people love about swimming. I actually do one coaching session per week with Dolphins. I help one of the other coaches, David Smith, with his senior squad. So they're like the older guys. They only do like 4.5 hours a week.
Or is it like a master's session?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But not all of them compete in masters. Like one of the, a couple of them, especially Robert Bryce, he's currently pushing for the commies in 50 fly. But he's only training 4.5 hours a week. So it shows you how much you can do just with a little amount of training. It's all about specificity. But yeah, back to what I was saying, I do coaching with them once a week. And what were we talking about again?
I was just saying, like, about personal progression. When you go to an event and you do PB, that gives you the motivation to get back in the water,
Yeah,
and just continue.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of those swimmers, they're like older or they compete in masters, but you watch them train and they're some of the happiest people you know. Like they love it. And it's not like some of them are like world class athletes, but it's not necessarily about that. Like it's so rewarding when you're coaching them and you help them with something and they feel a sense of progression. You know what I mean? It's a really rewarding sport.
It's because they're not doing the 400 IMs anymore.
I'm not, definitely.
But you say, you're right. I think if you only do a certain amount of hours a week and it's really tailor-made training, 50 fly as well, it's a powerful stroke, isn't it?
Definitely.
So what's next for you in and out of the pool?
So in terms of swimming, I've actually got a competition this weekend. It's the University of Aberdeen long course age group meet. So it's at the Sports Village in Aberdeen. So it's a local one. It's just a chance to post some more long course times. I'm doing a lot of different events. I'm actually doing the 200 free.
What's your time for 200 free?
Last time I did it was like, I think 2018 or 19 long course, which was a 217, but obviously short course, I'm like 204. So like, yeah. I'm obviously just doing it to update a time, see what I go. And then I'm also doing the 200 back, 200 breaststroke, 50, 100 breaststroke as well, and the 50 free. So
another busy schedule.
Yeah, 6 events over 2 days. It's not too bad, but then I keep forgetting that there's finals. But there's no finals for 200s, so it's only the 50, 100 breast and the 50 free. So it won't be too bad. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one. It's just about like trying out a few different events and trying to post some new times.
Yeah, no, you are doing a lot of events. I never could quite get my head around the people that do the 1500s. Of course, just the one, obviously, as you said, there are no heats because of the distance. But I used to swim with a kid who won nationals when he was 12. And I think he was repping like 110s at 12 for 1500 meters. He was just an incredible swimmer. I remember what was I doing? I think I was doing a free set. He was doing a back set. He was an all-rounder, but unfortunately he got injured. But I'll tell you something. We was, I can't remember where we were, but we was, I think he was doing a 400 IM and he was only 12 and he was racing in the open and there was a 16-year-old lad. He was winning it. He went out hard on the fly. His backstroke was strong. To be fair, his breaststroke. And I think the bloke I used to swim with, he actually runs a club now. but I think going into the 100, I think he was probably like half a length behind, not like, sort of a quarter of a length behind maybe.
Yeah.
And because he was a 1500-meter swimmer, he won it. And you talk about inspiring people. He was so humble, nicest bloke in the world. But yeah, sadly he got injured. But yeah, I could never quite get me head around the 1500-meter swimmers. Just insane amount of training they do.
Yeah, I know. My teammate Callum, he's a couple of years younger. I think he got a silver in the 800
Is
free
that
at
Callum Rose?
nationals. No, Callum Gold. Callum Rose, I think he swims for Warrender Bath.
Oh, okay. So I've heard his name come up a few times when I was watching the clip.
Yeah, so Callum Gold, I think he's 15, yeah. And yeah, I train with him, and it takes a certain person to do a distance freestyle, and he definitely fits that category.
Yeah, I think you need it's almost like long distance running. You need that ability just to switch off. I think like sometimes when, you know, I don't swim anymore, but when I go for a run, sometimes you'll switch off and you'll forget about how tired you are. But you know, when you like you were saying, like your sets earlier, but then you'd overhear the long distance sets, you know, like 5/800s or something crazy. It's just yeah, could never quite understand it.
Yeah, I know. I used to do a lot more distance when I was younger. I think I mentioned earlier I used to enter just like every event, like probably when I was like between the ages of like 10 and 13. I used to enjoy a 1500. That was before my shoulder. That was before my shoulders started playing up, and I actually had a really nice front crawl technique. I mean, it's not so nice now, but I'm working on it. But yeah, it is satisfying. It is a really rewarding part of swimming when you can just like maintain a pace for a long time. It is a good feeling.
And I know it's hard to say at the moment, but if you had to pick a stroke, the stroke you think that you will go the furthest in, what do you reckon it will be?
I don't think there's anything other I can say right now than backstroke. I mean, it's actually kind of hurts to say because I always thought of myself as a young kid as like butterfly. I wanted butterfly to be my stroke, but it's not happening right now with a butterfly, and backstroke's working really well for me. I'm enjoying it. Like I genuinely enjoy training backstroke, and like backstroke used to be my worst event when I was younger, and this is what I'm saying about swimming. Like I took time to work on it, and I felt so much satisfaction with like this progression through my backstroke, and now I'm up and it's doing well for me.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that. I would say, you know, the strokes you hate, you've got to swim like you love it.
Mm-hmm.
And all being well, how far, you know, do you feel like if your shoulder sorts itself out and that doesn't cause you much grief, how far do you feel like you can go in a sport if you stay as motivated and dedicated as you are at the minute?
I'd like to say the top, but yeah, you've got to have that positive belief that you can make it to the top, and that's what I want to do. I feel like I want to take that next step when I go to uni and really like focus down and just like put everything into swimming when I go to uni. So yeah, I want to get to the top.
And when you actually manage to get some downtime, because you telling us about your training schedule is ridiculous, and you know you work, and obviously you're back at the pool when you're working as well, so there's no escape from it. What do you enjoy doing away from swimming?
I spend quite a lot of time with my girlfriend. She makes me happy, so I'd like to spend a lot of time with her. I went through a phase where I was actually making YouTube videos for swimming. Like
Okay.
I was filming my swimming, some of my training, and uploading some of my races, but I had a bit of a problem with like consent forms and things like that.
Yeah.
I had to remove some of the videos, and then I kind of lost motivation to start doing that again.
I'll tell you something I did see actually a little while ago. There was I think he was a runner. He wouldn't film the race, but what he would do is he would sort of like vlog, go into the event, like his morning, and then he would sort of vlog like coming home and like talking about the events, the times. I don't know whether it's something you've still got a passion for, you want to, you know, continue to do, but it was quite interesting just to, you know, hear the actual athlete talk about the event and what went with it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something I want to do. It's just like right now I've got a lot on the table, and there's I'm also becoming like a lot more independent. Like I'm trying to like be a lot more independently financial as I'm growing up, and like finding my own way to and from. Like I got the bus down to Glasgow for nationals, because I'm learning to drive right now, so I would still have to have my parents like sitting in the car, and obviously I want to be more independent. So we got the bus down, and like now that I'm experiencing all these things that are becoming a lot more independent, it's like there's so much in my mind. It's like, oh, I forgot to bring the GoPro. You know what I mean? It's like it kind of just slips your mind, but it's definitely something that I want to get back to, because I have a like a fitness page. I'm named it a fitness page because like I started it in lockdown and vlogged all my like fitness my gym stuff. But I post like some of my races on there as well, and I'm definitely gonna get back to posting more and more races onto there as well.
Is that on your Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, mate, swimming needs a lot more exposure, and I think it'll be quite healthy for a young up and coming swimmer that swims at a high level to document their journey. But understandably, mate, working and all the training you do, you're a busy individual. But I've got to say, it's a godsend that you've got a missus that actually swims as well, so she appreciates.
Yeah, I know.
you can just sit in together and watch telly and be boring.
Yeah.
And just before I let you go, mate, just want to say, you know, it's been a pleasure getting you on this channel, because, as I said earlier, I think it is one of the hardest sports, you know, to compete in, and the sacrifices you make. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for having me on. It's been really good. I've enjoyed it. But yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, mate. You know, we started this channel. We was due to start it in just before lockdown. A colleague of mine that I worked with in the office, we both work from home now because of lockdown. We sat down. We wanted to do something. We started reviewing the football from the weekend with the intention to get guests on at some point. And it just happened a lot quicker than we sort of thought. Again, you know, we predominantly speak to boxers because, unlike a few, like, you know, there's a few like that obviously make a lot of money, the Joshuas, the Furies, and so on. You know, there's a big, you know, undercurrent that, you know, don't earn all the money and not on millions of pounds. So it's nice to help them with exposure, and it's nice to get you on because, you know, you swim, and it's not an easy sport. It is tough. There's lots that go on behind the scenes. So yeah, if you ever start that channel and you start posting content, let me know, mate, because I would be quite interested to have a look.
Yeah, I will do. I really appreciate this. I respect what you're doing. It's really good trying to get exposure for athletes that deserve it, because at the end of the day, obviously there's people at the top and they're obviously working extremely hard, but there's a lot of people that aren't earning the money, that aren't getting the exposure, that probably deserve more than what they're getting. So yeah, it's great.
I just think as well with you know, with the lockdown situation, and it was hard, and to come away from a sport you enjoy doing, it's nice just to talk to athletes about their journey, because whether you're boxing, swimming, or whatever it is, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to get you where you want to be. So, you know, we appreciate you jumping on. We look forward to following your journey, and if you have any other swimmers that, you know, might want to come on and talk about their journey, obviously feel free to point them in our direction.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Just before I let you go as well, do you follow a football team?
I don't want to be controversial, but I do, yeah.
Oh, go on, you got to say, got to tell.
Liverpool.
Well, I'm a Man United, mate. I'm a Man United fan, mate, and I don't know what's worse, Liverpool winning the league or Man City. What do you think? Think you're going to do it?
The thing is, a lot of people say they're back in Liverpool, but obviously I want to, but at the end of the day, Man City still have that 1 point, and it's hard to see either of them faltering. So I don't know.
City have definitely got a harder European tie, haven't they? Than
yeah, definitely. But I feel like a lot of people are going to underestimate Villarreal because they have obviously Unai Emery is their coach, and he's won so many like Europa Leagues and
Yeah.
had so much European success. It's going to be a lot harder of a tie than a lot of people are thinking.
And I imagine as well with the fact that you can't go out on the beer and party too much because you're swimming. Anything you're watching at the moment that's good? I can always do a good recommendation.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Netflix. Probably one of my favorite series. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Okay.
Yeah, me and my girlfriend are watching it through again from the start to the finish because there's a new season out. So yeah, I recommend that.
Anything else?
I've started watching a bit of Formula One.
Oh, okay. That's turned on its head this season, isn't it? I don't follow it closely, but Hamilton, he's not at the races this year, is he? Excuse the pun.
I mean, I don't follow it that closely. I just turned it on the TV a couple of times and found it interesting.
Well, yeah, I can't say it's something that sort of gets me that sort of excited, but I think there's a lot that goes on with the cars. But I look forward to seeing the end of the Premiership season, see how that sort of plays out, and it'd be good to see an All English Champions League final as well.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Perfect. Well, listen, mate, you're a busy man. I appreciate you jumping on. I know you've still got to go and work out now or do some stretches or something. So enjoy the rest of your evening. And yeah, anyone else, mate, just point them in our direction.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Top man. Cheers, Kieran.
Right, bye.